All right. Okay, share to groups again. Oops, I shared to the wrong group. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just gonna I don't even know half of these dark-on groups.
There's so many of them.
It is.
I go and I post stuff. I just pick like certain ones because you can't hit all of them.
I think I'm done. My hand is like shaking. It's like all right. Should we do an icebreaker this time? I feel like this is the one. I can't tell until I click on it. No, it's not. Nope. Nope, it's not. All right. Gee, the wee. All this stuff I have. When did we do? What was
that? The 15th. No.
Was it the 13th? No. No, it was like the 7th.
Earlier. Yeah, it was earlier in December.
Yeah, it was like the 6th or the 7th. Gee, the wee. I think this is it.
Part 2. Boom. Part 2.
We did it. We did it. Hey, we did it. All right. Okay. So, let us try to bring it back.
My eyebrows is on fleek. No, they don't even say fleek no more, huh?
No, they don't.
That was like 2016.
Yep, pretty much. What do they say now?
I don't even know.
I feel old. Do they still say fleek?
I don't think so. I shouldn't be saying it. I know.
Do you know what fleek is though? Like what?
Like literally?
Yeah.
It's like off the chain?
Like a wet fart or something like that?
Oh, no, for real?
Yeah.
My eyebrows are not on no wet farts.
Something like that.
I can make them look like it though, like I go like, "Rrr."
Oh my god.
I can make them like, my evil face. Like, "Rrr." That's about it.
Okay, so, didn't I have...
You had something.
I'm trying to think of, should we do the icebreaker? Should we?
Nah.
Nah, not this time. Y'all gonna watch, y'all gonna think it out with us and just watch us do our whole situation. Okay, first of all, hello. I am Shabreon Howard, sickle cell advocate, filmmaker, writer, mother.
Definitely.
That's okay. Thank you though.
It tastes good.
I know it does.
You tasted this one before?
I did. Go eat your cheesecake and watch your movie, please.
Okay.
As I was saying, I am very active in the sickle cell community as an advocate, and I'm grateful to be working with so many great people.
That's for sure.
Him being one of them. we did a couple things together, you know, a couple things. So yeah, that's pretty much my introduction today. That's what I have for you guys. Tell them.
So she left out that we used to do the call together. Shouts out to KC and Diamond Ray and Omika. We used to broadcast that on Saturdays at LA Talk Live. So that page is still up if you want to go and catch some of those links.
Yes.
Definitely a very informative show. It was a pleasure to do that. And hopefully we can work on bringing that show back.
Yes.
Shortly.
It was such a great show. I think, you know, people who did get a chance to catch it was very inspired by it. I know I got a couple of messages here and there, you know, so, you know, that's just something that I love, the fact that I'm like, yeah, I did a radio show.
Oh, yeah. So me, I've been doing radio since 2010. So I'm Farron DOzier, sickle cell trait advocate. And I got into radio only because of my depression. Really, that was my outlet. And it started with a sports show. And then when I found out my sickle cell trait was part of my trigger for my injuries from the rhabdomyolysis, I saw that I could do that. Education was more important than sports. But then I saw that student athletes have been collapsing and dying from sickle cell trait exertion. So it was actually connected to sports, plus military. So I just incorporated all those conversations in my sports show and brought awareness, and we talked sports and highlights. WDC Radio came from there. But where do you want to start?
Let's start talking about the 10 things you should know about sickle cell. So right here,
we got the list, y'all.
Yeah, I have a list of 10 things that people should know about sickle cell trait.
So how about if we do the 10 things and I can just relate my story to the 10 each one, and that way we could just knock it all in instead of telling them separate. How's that?
We can do that. We can do that. Okay.
So 10 things.
10.
Any questions? Make sure you type them on the screen,
Yes.
and so we know what you want to know.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, please don't be ashamed or afraid to ask.
Yeah, no wrong answers, no wrong questions.
No such thing. Okay. So number 1, sickle cell trait gene is lauded as a miraculous gene mutation that protected the body against malaria.
Yeah, so that is an actual fact. And so when I do my presentations, I have a slide that we talk about the origin of sickle cell trait and how it combats malaria. And yes, African Americans, we are number 1. However, you could be Mediterranean, Caucasian, European, Asian descent, because it's no longer just a skin color. You have to know where your ancestors are from. And a lot of people, we don't talk about where our ancestors came from. And so because it derives from Africa, so that, we are priority number 1 over there. And the thing about it is the body created that natural defective gene, and that's how they survive malaria. Unfortunately, having sickle cell is not a good thing with malaria because it can also cause death as well because of the attacking of the red cells. So the sickle cell trait is known to combat malaria. I've still heard people actually die from malaria with sickle cell trait, but it gave that race a greater chance to survive. And so that's pretty much why it exists there. They say King Tut had sickle cell. They found some sickle cells in his tomb and things like that. So a lot of people have this gene. Globally, 300 million people. Talk about Nigeria, 30 million, all the way down to the United States. They say we got 2.5 to 4 million, but we know those numbers are little off, just a little bit, possibly a little bit.
Okay, number 2, some people go their entire lives without any symptoms from sickle cell trait.
And so, speaking of symptoms, so after I collapsed with sickle cell trait in 2006, I didn't really find out it was even trait related until 2010, only because of a conversation that I had with Joseph Adams, who was my platoon leader back in 04-05 during the deployment we were on. And I happened to see him in 2010. We passed each other on the base. He asked me how I'd been. At that time, I could barely walk, and I was depressed, going to a mental health appointment. But I told him what I was dealing with and where I was at, and so he mentioned, something like that happened to me where my muscles locked up. He says, but I have sickle cell trait, so I have to drink extra water, take these vitamins, and I stood there like, why does that sound familiar? And then when I remember my exam from 99, that I was a sickle cell trait carrier, I went and got that documentation, took that to the doctor, and then started triggering my memory that I was having health issues during the deployment. And even I had pain in my arm since age 5. So in 1975, my arm was aching. My grandmother would hold me over the sink and run warm water over my arm. Only thing that would soothe the pain, took me to the doctor. They said it was growing pains. He's 5, don't worry about it. But I actually, live with this pain. And after I met people in this community and I started advocating, and some of my pain symptoms, people could relate to me or I could relate to them. And so, yes, some people don't have complications, but then again, a lot of people when I meet, they say, "Oh no, I don't have any pain." It's not just about having pain, because it is a red cell condition. So some people with sickle cell trait have anemia type issues, and so it may not just be a pain thing, but it could be, show up as a type of anemia. Plus, there's kidney cancer that's connected to sickle cell trait. So there's a lot of things that you got to pay attention to, and not everybody is going to have a pain or that's experiences, but you really need to pay attention because there are risk factors and there could be some secondary health issues. Fatigue is also a common amongst our community because again, it's a red blood cell condition, the oxygen. And so when DOzier was little, she had pain in her hands and feet at like 2. And I wasn't doing this work. I was stationed in Michigan. So again, I was just like, oh, it's growing pains because that's what they told me. But clearly, if she's dehydrated or stressed, her hands, her feet, and her shins, she has pain. And then she's always asleep. And I'm like, man, why is she lazy? Like, why are you always sleeping? Like, why are you always laying down? But again, the fatigue is definitely one of the symptoms. So it may not always be pain, but if you are a trait carrier, you definitely want to go get examined by a hematologist and make sure you have your kidneys checked as well. So definitely important.
Number 3, that brings us to our next point. Just because you have the trait, you are not exempt from the symptoms of the disease or secondary issues.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, so that pretty much brings what you just said into full circle.
But there's another part. So the part that I left out for the athlete is from my experience from exercising was the rhabdomyolysis. So the risk factors for exercising with sickle cell trait is possibility of having the rhabdomyolysis, which is a skeletal muscular disorder. So when I decided to sprint that morning on my last lap on my exercise test, I did feel like this electrical charge like come over my body as I was sprinting, but I didn't think nothing of it, just kind of odd. But when I came across the finish line, I put my hands over my head to get air in my lungs and all that, and my peripheral started getting dark, and then I just closed my eyes real tight and lay back, and then everything was spinning like 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
So I was nauseated. I was really, muscle fatigue. And so when I went to the doctor, they said that the morning doctor, he saw that my kidneys were low, like functioning low, but he thought it was just because of dehydration. So he gave me like 2 IVs, sent me back to the barracks to rest. But my condition got worse, and so I went back to the doctor that night. And the night doctor saw my creatine kinase levels, which is your CK levels, and they were like 12,000. And that's where they diagnosed me with the rhabdo, because that is how they can tell. So it's a skeletal muscular disorder. So when the muscles break down and get into the bloodstream, it releases toxins, it releases high levels of potassium. Of course, once it hits the kidneys, because it's toxins, the kidneys can't filter it, so the kidneys start to fail. So both my kidneys, I had renal failure, like 50% each. And so insides were dying off and had no idea. At that time, it was even trait related, like I said, until Joseph Adams crossed my path and explained to me about his muscle issues. So rhabdomyolysis is what is related to the sudden deaths, because the high levels of potassium, once it hits your heart, it could cause the heart to have arrhythmia and or stop the heart. And so the cardiac arrest is what some people have, and then it's been written up in the autopsy reports as heart attacks. However, some of them have been written up from sickle cell trait, because when their cells mutate, that's the lack of oxygen to the muscles, right. And so the muscles start to break down. So it's serious, and they're doing more research. That's the whole deal. Shouts out to Dr. Austin, who went back to school to get her PhD in sickle cell trait awareness, and so she's definitely a teammate in her expertise of helping us figure out what's going on with sickle cell trait. And so definitely exercise. people mountain climbing, scuba diving, all those things. I'm not sure if those questions are on there coming up, but I'll make sure I touch on that as well.
Okay, and we have a comment from Donette Tucker. Thank you for putting the information out there. My daughter has SS, sickle cell disease. No problem. This is what we do.
And Shannon over here, she's like, she had no idea about the kidney cancer. Her son is a carrier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit about what he was just talking about. That brings us to number 4. Sudden death rate for sickle cell trait carriers are 30 times higher than people without the trait.
Yeah.
So sudden death rates are very high.
Yeah, so you definitely, if you have a student athlete, a child, exercising, or a student athlete, you definitely want to have them checked out. You can also go into the doctor and they can do a complete blood count. They can also tell you what percentage of the S gene you carry. On my second test, UCLA did go back and retest me to verify that I was a trait carrier, and they found that almost 40% of my red cells were the S gene, and so that was how UCLA was able to tie my issues back to 2006, 4 years, prior, and then the military did what they did and medical retired me. But the NCAA made it mandatory for all student athletes to play college sports at all levels to have a sickle cell trait test done or sign a waiver, because previously athletes were dying playing football or running track and the schools were liable. So now what they did was they put the liability back on the family and that athlete. So you either sign a waiver and or take the test to find out if you're a carrier, and then that way they know for precautions and whatever support that you need.
Okay, number 5. Living with sickle cell trait can cause its own secondary issues like under intense stressful conditions, exhaustion, hypoxia, muscle breakdown, glaucoma, spleen infarction, heat stroke or renal failure, a very rare form of kidney cancer, renal, I'm going to say it. That's
ahead.
okay. Medullary carcinoma. There we go.
That's it. Yeah, and those are the things I mentioned. So it's very important for people with sickle cell trait. A lot of people don't know, and that's again why we're out here doing this awareness and sharing information, because a lot of people, all they heard was make sure you don't mate with another person, which I'm sure I see already is one of those numbers down there. So what's the next one?
Okay, number 6. People with sickle cell trait can experience pain crises.
So again, my left arm has been aching since I was 5, and it never went away. I just learned to live with it. After my exertion, my arm pain has actually increased more. So I don't know what that's about, but now definitely if I'm dehydrated or fatigued or tired, I say I wish I was a black Ken doll where I could take my arm off and put it on the shelf because it aches so bad. And it's just unfortunate. My daughter, she's 20, and she still has her same kind of pain issues. So we just learn to just manage it with what we can, heating pads, massages or rub downs on the arm, weed.
I'm just saying.
Weed.
It works.
Weed works.
It works.
Yeah. So just
my daughter, she has issues with pain sometimes too since last year. The first time I've ever, witnessed her actually have a pain crisis. And I knew it was sickle cell because it's like you get a specific face.
Yeah.
You cannot deny the face.
Yeah.
And she was confused. She didn't understand it. And she was in a lot of pain. And my daughter, she already has a high tolerance for pain. So the fact that she was just shocked and was like, oh no, what is this? So yeah, she has also went through that.
And we still need, research to make sure, because whatever that, again, we talk about secondary health issues. So you'll be talking about now, I manage arthritis. I have double vision. My vision was messed up during that exertion injury. The glasses won't correct it. So you talk about now I can't exercise at the capacity that I used to. I've experienced, minor bouts of rhabdo again, so I know what it feels like. So I have to stop and just stop exercising. So it impacts your health totally a lot as far as the secondary complications. So.
Let's see.
Deep tissue
Have y'all
massage.
done a deep tissue massage? It helps a lot. You don't be in pain for at least 16 to 24 hours with that.
Yeah, that's deep. But I got one over here too.
Oops. I can't read the rest of the comment. I don't know why my phone doesn't let me read the rest of the comment.
Won't?
No.
Let's see. Oh no. Nah, it won't. Not right now.
Okay, well, I'll read the rest of it later. I have not done deep tissue massage professionally, but it does help sometimes. Sometimes you don't want to be touched, and sometimes it helps to, rub it out.
Definitely.
Okay, moving on. Number 7, 2 people with sickle cell trait. I never changed
You never
this.
changed that, yeah.
No. Okay, so let's change it right now. 25, right?
It's for the disease, right?
Yeah. No.
50% for trait.
Oh, I was right.
Yeah, you must have changed it.
Oh, I probably did. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to just read this now. 2 people with the trait who have children has a 50% chance of having a child with sickle cell trait and a 25% chance of having a child with sickle cell disease.
Yeah. And again, when I do my presentations at the military base or the college or the high schools, I have a slide that expresses that conversation. And also 25% chance that your child will have normal AA because both parents could pass the normal A genes.
Yes.
And so the child can have just normal. And so there's been couples that I've interviewed that had 3 children. One was normal AA, one was trait, and one was disease. And they were shocked in all 3 because they didn't understand how with each pregnancy it also starts over. So you met people that have 2 children with sickle cell disease because they thought, well, they had one with the disease, well, maybe the next one will just be the trait. But the pregnancy, it starts over every time. Is an opportunity to have a child with any one of those.
Rolling the dice, the gene dice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever played that game, but Nita has those.
Yeah. And what I do is I have flashcards, and so A and S, so I pass them out, and then I tell couples to stand up and then see what they have as a random choice so they understand how it's inherited. And it's like your genes, so you don't get to pick your hair color, your eye color, none skin color. You don't get to pick none of those for your child. And same with sickle cell trait, is inherited, so you don't get to pick if they have that gene or not. I have 3 daughters, and my youngest one, DOzier, is the only one that inherited the trait from me. So we don't get to pick those genes that we pass.
Okay, let's read this comment before we move. I have
the worst sickle cell you can get. I have 7 strokes, 2 heart attacks. Oh yeah.
Wow. What type of, you have SS?
Yeah, what type you have? You SS or SC or sickle thalassemia? Which one you're a carrier of?
Yeah. I mean, because me personally, I just want to say I feel like sickle cell is sickle cell. I know I have SS, and I know some people who have SC that's way worse than me. And I know my mom, she had SS, and she was way worse than I am. So it's
remember, it's an individual disease.
Yeah.
I mean, the impact and the results are the same because it's sickle cell, but how it affects everybody's body and DNA is totally different. How it expresses itself, but it definitely, the end results are the same.
It's on what?
I don't know.
It's on that SF. Are you saying you have SF? Is that what she's saying?
I don't know what that is.
Is that possible? Okay.
The fetal hemoglobin.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe, sometimes the autocorrect be tripping. For real. Okay. Let's just move forward. All right. Number 8. In January 2012, ASH released a policy on screening for sickle cell trait and athletic participation. They opposed the mandatory sickle cell trait screening in order to participate in athletic programs. They want athletic training programs to adopt a universal preventative interventions to protect athletes from exertion-related illness and death by drinking adequate amounts of fluid and taking breaks. So you can find that on hematology.org. It's a nice article about,
Also, you can go to my website, wdconsct.org, or you can go to CDC. I got the same information. They have a sickle cell trait toolkit where it gives you all the breakdowns of all the awareness for sickle cell trait, and it has fact sheets that you can download and read and give to your student athlete or the coaches of your children that play sports, and it gives them a breakdown. It doesn't make them less of an athlete. It just means that instead of maybe doing 10 sprints, they can only do about 8, maybe take a break, and then do the other 2. It doesn't mean that they are less of an athlete or they can't play sports. However, with that conversation, some people think that they will be discriminated against if they are told they have sickle cell trait and they can't play sports because the coaches or the trainers may not want them on the field to get hurt or exert themselves. And so working with Dr. Austin, doing her thesis for her doctrine, she interviewed a lot of student athletes for her surveys, and actually it was different. The student athletes actually wanted to know if their players or teammates had any kind of health condition so they could help them. Right. So if the quarterback had asthma, they was like, heck yeah, we want to know. And plus if they have that asthma or trait, like if they earn their spot, they earn their spot. It doesn't mean that they're going to hold that against them, but they actually want to know. So you have part of the community are afraid of being discriminated against, and you have the actual athletes who are like, nah, we need to know so we can help take care of them if something happens. So obviously those two conversations don't match. And so for me, it's like, what's the value of life? So you have to look at how important that conversation is for you and your athlete, and then you have to determine about sports. And also, we talk about that there's so many other jobs connected to sports that some people think they have to be the one catching the ball or shooting the basket. When the camera, there's agents and coaches and trainers. There's so many different positions that could keep you connected to that sport, even if you can't eventually play anymore. So, I think the mentality of what we see on TV, that we got to be that next person, shooting those baskets. And there are great careers in sports other than being on the field or on the court. So
absolutely,
you just have to be open to that.
Both of them are mixed together called SF. Oh, okay. Wow, I've never heard.
Yeah, we want to have to talk to you because we're not. There's of course 400 plus types of different variations of sickle cell. So if it's sickle cell and another red cell condition together, it falls under the sickle cell disease category. So yeah, if you got any information about SF, besides us knowing that the F is a fetal hemoglobin, so let us know because we're interested in find out what your story is about that. So
yes. Okay. Oh,
I got Shannon over here. She says doctors have told me SC disease are not in crisis often. Yeah, see again, even if you look that up in the medical on the sites, it always says that sickle cell SC disease is like a minor case, right? But again, as she mentioned, I have friends, Krishan and a few others that have sickle cell SC that have lots of pain, that have strokes, that have had other health issues. So again, you can't say that sickle cell SC is minor because it depends on how it affects each
The
person's
person.
body.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you can't say that SS is worse than sickle thalassemia or SC is minor, because it all impacts people,
Different.
different levels. So
And I think they try to say that is because SS is more of a anemia, like deals with, anemia a little more. So they're saying because you have SC, it's not as, you're not as anemic, so you shouldn't have as many issues. But like we're saying, it's the individual person.
right, and you got to understand, when you have a mixture, so you're talking about sickle cell trait, the S gene mutates, and you talk about the C trait, and the C trait crystallizes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you got one mutating gene, and then if the other one gets stressed out or mutates, it crystallizes. So you're talking about two different red cells doing two different things. So how can you say that's minor? I mean, C trait has its own exact conversation as we're talking about, except they put C trait in there. So how it's inherited, the 50% and 25% is all the same, except for how it impacts the body as a C trait carrier. But there's a C trait disease that parent can pass the C trait just like they pass the S. I mean, so same conversation, just how that red cell impacts, just like with thalassemia.
Mm-hmm.
People have thalassemia by itself, but both genes that they were inherited thalassemia from. So there's thalassemia disease, not just with sickle cell trait. So each one has their own conversation.
Yes.
So you can't forget that.
Definitely. Okay. Number 9. 2 million people in the U.S. live with sickle cell trait.
So they say.
So they say.
So I mentioned that earlier. 300 million people globally is what the numbers were. All the way from Nigeria to Congo, 15, 20 million people, all the way down to United States, with the lowest being about 2.5 to 4 million. I've heard as much as 4 million. Some of the literature still says 2.5, some says 4. It just depends on what site you're looking at and who you're talking to. But it is between 2.5 to 4 million people, and more than that don't know.
Exactly.
So
that's the point too, because
Yeah.
a lot of people are walking around with trait and don't even know it, and then they get with other people who don't know they have trait, and then they have a child with the disease, and they're like, well, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you didn't know you had sickle cell trait? No.
And like I said, you got to ask about the other ones too. So we have to be responsible for everything, because as myself, I didn't know, until I found out at age 29, and that was my 10th year in the military. So I joined the Army at 19 and didn't find out till 10 years later. So whatever blood work that they did or did not do, there was nothing tested or told to me that I was a trait carrier until the Air Force base found it on my second physical transferring to Michigan. And because of their job skills and their pilots, they test for sickle cell trait. So they called me back and in a panic, like, you need to come back to the clinic. And I was like, did I catch something? Like, that don't even sound right, yo. Like, no information over the phone, like, you need to come back. And I was like, all right. So I go back, like, what's going on? And they're like, do you know you have sickle cell trait? I'm like, no. Like, I have a cousin with sickle cell disease on my dad's side, but he's like, no, it's not the disease, you're just a carrier. And so no pamphlet, no information, no papers, no nothing. Just, I'm like, all right, cool. In one ear, out the other. I'm getting ready to transfer, leave California, to take my new job, and and didn't even think about it at all. And so remember, I found out in 99, but my daughter was born in 98, and we got a letter from the health department. And we got the letter, we looked at it, and we was like, okay. So it didn't even register. We was one of those families that took that letter and folded it up and put it in a drawer and didn't think anything about it. And even when I found out I was a carrier, it still never connected the dots. So until my exertion happened.
Yep.
What happens?
Life has a way of bringing things full circle.
Way full circle. More circles than you know.
Circles all around with everybody.
Connecting dots.
Okay, so number 10. People with sickle cell trait, I don't know why I didn't put that.
Oh.
People with sickle cell trait are encouraged not to donate whole blood products, but encouraged to donate platelets instead.
Yeah, so we can donate platelets. The procedures they call washing the blood, so they separate the platelets and they can use those for donations, but we cannot donate all the blood to save lives that way. But you can donate and they will take the platelets for sure.
Okay, so I mean, if anyone has any questions, that's our 10 things you should know about sickle cell trait. If you have any questions about anything we just discussed, any comments, now is the time to do so.
Make it happen.
Can you tell people a little bit about your advocacy journey?
Oh, yeah. So literally, during my finding out I had sickle cell trait and then going back to the doctor to see my rheumatologist because of my arthritis, my secondary health issues was what got me kicked out of the military. So after we figured out that it was trait related, they put me on a medication for the arthritis, for the inflammation, because my whole body was inflamed. I was literally stiff as this table. I couldn't walk. And so the Humira did help. I fought the doctors because, of course, the side effects I was afraid of. But it did help some of the process. And so I was actually going back to my mental health provider, and he was on leave. And another guy came in, Ashley Benjamin, and he read my chart and he was like, "So what are you going to do when you retire?" I was like, "Well, I got a sports brand. I might sell some t-shirts, sit on the dock of the bay and watch the tides roll away and whistle." And he's like, "Let me show you something." So we opened up this college handbook that he wrote with his colleagues about student athletes and giving them directions on college and things like that. So there was a paragraph about sickle cell trait exertion in college athletes. And I was like reading it, crying, like, "You know what happened to me?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It happens all the time. But it either gets misdiagnosed or, people just not aware." So he was like, "You could become an advocate." And I'm like, what's that? He's like, "You can actually go out and share your story and then use your sports brand to raise money, and that could pay for your work." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And it was like the cartoon with the little light bulb, like, came over my head. It's like, bling. And like, I went home that day, and instead of, worrying about my life was headed, I couldn't sleep, so I'd be up at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was up researching and reading and looking for organizations and more about sickle cell trait. And then when I started finding foundations and organizations, it was like, man, there's a whole world out here that I had no idea that people were suffering. I found Facebook groups. I found Phyllis, who was my mentor, Phyllis Zachary Thomas. She actually embraced me in 2010, and it was the conference. It was the 30th conference for the SCDA that year. And by that time, I did research. I had made a brochure. I had put my story together. I had got all the sickle cell trait facts and packaged it up and bought my ticket and flew to that conference. And Phyllis said she was going to be there with the booth. So I met her at her booth, and then we went to some of the events. And then I went to the community event, and Kiki Shepard was the host that year. So I got her attention. I raised my hand. They passed me the mic on my opportunity to speak. I introduced myself to the community and said I was military and I experienced trait exertion. And people looked at me like, who are you? And so I was like, I'm just here to share my story about this trait, but it wasn't, did I feel embraced? No, I didn't. It was like, who are you? What are you doing here? Like, what are you talking about? The trait what? And so Dr. Whitney, she asked to see my brochure, so I gave it to her. And then after that town hall meeting, she gave it back to me and says, well, you know what? There's only one thing I'm asking you to change. All your facts are good, except for the sudden death. And she's like, we don't want to really scare people about the sudden death. So can you like soften that part up? And so I said thank you, and I went back home, and I did soften it up but I didn't leave it out because it is possible that people can have sudden death with sickle cell trait. And so, but that was the only thing. And then Phyllis went back to the SCDAA to try and figure out how we could all work together. And so again, the SCDA is the Sickle Cell Disease Foundation, which back then is what they told me. So they really didn't have a place for me for trade. So I was hurt, and Phyllis saw it, but she says, you know what, you can work with me with the SCDA, the SCD Soldier Network. And so I really partnered with her, and she mentored me. I mean, she gave me so much knowledge and insight on what kind of advocate to be, how to be responsible, just what was missing currently and who I could be to fill those voids in my conversation. And so I worked with her up until she had her crisis, and she ended up going into coma that September. We were doing a sickle cell conference tour, and so we had like 4 cities lined up, and we were going to end at the SCDA conference that year. So we did Vegas, and we were going to do the Bay Area, and the second one, she had her crisis, and she went into she had a seizure. She was having seizures, and then they induced her in a coma so she could stop the seizures, and then she didn't come out of the coma. And so that was September, and then around December, she opened her eyes, and then from December until March, she couldn't speak, they said, but her eyes were open, and then in March she passed away. But the thing about Phyllis is, before she passed, she was at it was a Sunday, and she was at an event in Atlanta where her organization was, and a prophet came to her in passing and says, hey, you need to read Judges chapter 4. So of course she read it. On Monday she called me that morning like, hey, you need to grab your Bible. So I'm like, all right. So she's reading the passage of Judges chapter 4, and it talks about Deborah and Barak and the war on Sisera, and I'm just reading and listening, and it was like our relationship in the Bible and like our blueprint. And that passage is what I use to really guide my advocacy work by, and also not to forget that my purpose is actually a passage in there. And how that plays out is if you read that passage, so Deborah was a prophetess back then. She judged those communities, and Barak was a soldier in the military, and so he was called to fight those war against Sisera. And when she told Barak that he was chosen to fight that war, he told her, well, I'm not going to go unless you go with me. And so she says, well, if I go with you, you're not going to get the credit. A woman's going to get the credit. And that's how our relationship was, because again, I was mentored by a woman about how to advocate for sickle cell. Mm-hmm. And so I supported her. We went to conferences together. I did whatever, drive people to the airport, drop them off, pick them up, like whatever she needed me to do, I did that, and I listened to her guidance. And so it was like our relationship we were reading in the Bible passage. And so Sisera represents sickle cell. I'm Barak in that passage. She's Deborah. And so JL. So when you look that up real quick, Barak was told to gather 10,000 soldiers. They go to Mount Tabor. And while they're waiting and praying, God made it rain. So there's a river called the River of Kishon, which I met a girl for sickle cell. Her name is Krishan, and that's how deep it gets, right? Mm-hmm. So God made it rain, and so that river became muddy. And so when you get further in the passage, it talks about when Sisera heard that Barak was coming for him for the war, Sisera grabbed 900 chariots of iron. And so when you read that, what does sickle cell impact? It impacts our iron. Mm-hmm. So in that passage, he grabs 900 chariots of iron. He takes off. Barak and his soldiers defeat Sisera's army. However, Sisera takes off and gets away, and he's running through the desert, and there's a tent set up, JL and her husband, and JL sees him and invites him in the tent, and he asks her for water. She gives him milk. He's tired. He goes to sleep. She goes outside the tent and grabs a tent peg, and she kills him. and then she sees Barack and says, the guy you're looking for is in here. And how that plays out is that JL represents the community, and it's up to me to mobilize the community, share this message. But I know it's not about me getting the credit because. So
okay.
So understanding that those characters and how it plays out in my real life, that JL represents the community, and it's up to the community to figure out, their choice in sickle cell, whether they, use preventive measures or they choose to have a child anyway with sickle cell, with having the trait. So that is when I got that, it was like, all right, God, I got it. I understand that, this is my purpose, and so I have these principles and these guidelines and these messages that I get that have been passed to me from my spiritual belief, and so I rely on them heavily to guide my work. And so Phyllis passed away, and to me, she was like Star Wars. If I relate to her as Star Wars, when Obi-Wan Kenobi died, or when Yoda died, or when they all died, they were more powerful in the spirit world. And so I relate to her in that way. And so I still pray, I still talk to her, and I hear conversations that we've had, or I have documents that we have, and I still am able to stay focused, and I've been able to be consistent. I mean, this is going to my 9th year advocating for sickle cell traits. So I think it's really important. So out of that came a foundation called What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention. I chose, of course, the trait because of my own experience. And then as a prevention advocate, again, it's not about saying, I'm not saying that to eradicate the disease, but my conversation is to have people have an informed choice. And if I can prevent them from having a child not knowing, then at least they know, because a lot of people didn't know till after the fact, or they didn't know until the baby was in the womb. And then now they're having conversations about, do you want to terminate your pregnancy, or do you want to have this child with sickle cell disease? So as a prevention advocate, my conversation is, if you know ahead of time and you have an informed choice and you have all the information and the resources and what to expect if you do have a child, for me, that's the best that I can do. Especially because now realizing that in my own life is free will. And even God doesn't challenge people's free will. So it's not prevention like don't have a baby, but there are other ways. There are so many kids out there who need to be adopted. So there's so many ways to have a family. But again, if you don't have those conversations initially, then you're going to be having those of, well, where did this gene come from and how do we have a baby when there's information out there. But at the end of the day, I'm learning, especially today with what I'm dealing with in my own personal life right now, is that it's free will. Yes. And that's all that I can do is share information, share it, do my presentations. But it's really up to that person, that woman, that male, those couples to take that information, and then I call it an informed choice. And that's pretty much what I get to do now. And so I broke it down for awareness, education, and prevention. We created a campaign called Stop Sickle Sex. So the stop is awareness, the sickle is education, and the sex is prevention. It's got a condom it's a red sickle cell with a condom on it. And so I catch flack for that, but it's okay. It's definitely was made to get your attention and create a conversation piece, and it has done that.
I'm sure it does that and more.
Oh, and more, yeah. Oh, believe me. But it's when they ask me about it and I share what it represents versus what they made it mean, right? And it's different because most people take it personal. The
perception versus reality thing,
all that. So when you ask me what it's about, then I give them the actual what it means, then it doesn't match what they gave it, and so they're like, okay, actually pretty good conversation. So
yes,
I haven't, initially it's kind of hectic, but again, once we have a conversation about it, it alters the view of it and the importance of having that conversation. So,
and I believe it's absolutely important because you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So there can be no disease without the trait. And if you don't know anything about the trait, how can you expect to know everything about the disease?
Yeah.
So it all goes hand in hand, and I think what you do is so amazing and important to
Thank
people
you.
because there are so many people with traits that don't understand, don't comprehend, and that's why I wanted to bring this conversation to the forefront on my platform because I know there are people out there, even on my friends list, who either have the trait and don't know what that really means, or who know someone who has the trait or have family members, and they don't even understand half of the battle with that. You know, they think, oh, you just have the trait, you're fine. Why are you talking about you're in pain?
Yeah.
Or a person who has the trait and don't understand why they're in pain, don't understand
or
why
cold all the time,
Yeah.
or tired. Like I said, I meet people. I don't have any pain, and then I'm like, so how? Are you ever tired? Oh yeah, I'm always tired. Well, then you might want to go get that looked at because fatigue, or they, I feel like the doctor said I was anemic, and what's really been great in my work is because I was providing some testing and having these conversations that people have found out that they also had alpha thalassemia with their sickle cell trait, which actually impacts the red cells even more. So alpha thalassemia can be hidden on the same DNA strand. So if they don't do that test for thalassemia, they would only find the trait. And so some people have discovered that they also had alpha thalassemia with sickle cell trait. It's not a disease, but it also creates that more of anemia effect on the body. But then you have beta thalassemia with sickle cell trait, which forms a disease. But there have been people who have discovered, especially like we have conversations like, hey, you might want to go. So I tell everybody who questions their health about it, go back and get another test done and emphasize the thalassemias and make sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, quite a few times people came back was like, oh, you know what? I found I had alpha thalassemia. And it's like, okay, so now you can go and get some proper care for for the hematologist because you're actually having some kind of a iron issue,
Right.
or deficiency. So again, it's very important. There are days I feel like this is not important. I ain't gonna lie, because it's like nobody really cares. But I have to remember, we don't get instant gratification as advocates. It's the conversation we share, and we just have to trust and believe that whoever's listening or whoever in that audience is hearing that conversation, that was for them.
Yes.
And it may not be that day, but it may be them passing it to somebody else, or maybe just that one. I remember I did a health fair one time, and I set up in the morning, and I mean, people would walk by and look, and then keep going. And it wasn't until like that afternoon, they gave me the mic, I went up and I shared my story, and there was a lady in the audience, and she took off and she ran and grabbed her son who was playing in the play field, in the play yard, grabbed him and brought him to me and was like, tell him your story because he needs to hear. He's always tired. He's always this. And so I realized, like, man, if it's one person,
if you only reach one,
if that's it. So sometimes you want that instant gratification, but a lot of times I call it the ripple effect, where you just plant the seed, or you just say what you have to say, and just pray that whoever's listening will be able to share that message. It could be next week or a year later. I've had it come back to me like full circle, like years later. Like, oh yeah, I heard your conversation from so-and-so, and then I'm like, oh damn, like for real? So that part, as a person, as a human being, you have to remember that, this work is just sharing information. It is not really like, oh, somebody gonna call you on the phone like, oh yeah, thank you so much, whatever. Like, nah, I don't get that.
And it's crazy because people can people have approached me saying, oh, I saw your video in this group and that group, and I'm like, I never even shared my video in that group. But okay, great, thank you. You know, and I just want to thank everybody who does share these videos, who does, make a point to get people's attention towards what we are doing here. I just want to thank you all, because it's really a community. Without a community effort, we won't get anywhere.
So here's Sierra, and she says she found out when she was pregnant with her first child, and I didn't know anything about the trait. I still didn't know a lot about it. I'm cold and tired all the time.
Mm.
So again, hydration. We're trait carriers. There's not really a medication for us, but hydration, of course, diet, of course. Some people take B12. What's the other one? Sulfuric acid. What is that?
Which one?
It's a supplement. It's an amino acid.
Oh, L-glutamine?
No. The other
Okay.
one is, I can't think of the name of it. Some people take that with trait. I know Jody takes it. He has the disease, but I can't think of the name right now. But
Yeah, there's
it's another
a way.
amino acid.
There's a lot of preventative measures you can take, having the trait and the disease, to ensure you live a little bit healthier.
Folic acid.
Folic acid.
That's
there you
right,
go.
yeah.
Why couldn't I remember?
I know.
take folic acid.
Yeah, you saw. That's what I'm saying. So I was told that might be something to take as well.
Yes.
To also help.
Yes, because it is a deficiency.
Yeah.
That's another issue, is the deficiency of the folic acid in your body,
Right.
and it does cause that breakdown and that disconnect. So when you take folic acid, it does help a lot because, I'm telling you.
Well, I know, like I said, if you go to my Instagram is at WDC Radio, and so I've got videos of, I sat with Dr. Sabi on an interview, and he breaks down sickle cell all the way down to the molecular, and he talks about how deficiency of iron can cause like 20-something types of diseases, alone. So you're talking about, you already inherited a disease, and then the secondary issues from that lack of iron. So again, it's very important. And for my work, I separated sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease because I understand. For me, sickle cell community have their own awareness, education, prevention for your disease. And so I felt that the trait also has its own awareness, education, but they do meet in the conversation of the 50% and 25%.
Right.
So that's why I'm blessed to be able to work with people like you, because I don't have the disease. So I can only show a slideshow presentation, and then that's it. But with working with you and people like Jody, who go with me to these events or we do these shows, people can understand that, not just read about sickle cell disease, but also interact with someone who lives with that or manages that disease as well. So
yes,
I think we all, like you said, it all goes together.
Yes, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. And we're not chasing the same cheese, so it's not like we're trying to take donations from you to do the trade or whatever. I mean, it's a totally separate conversation. I mean, so we don't want funding issues to get in the way, because you got to share dollars. It's not even about that. It's really about sharing the message and
trust. So yeah, it is. It's about getting the message out there. It's about giving people the opportunity to learn, to build relationships, to communicate what necessarily you could be thinking something and feeling something, and you really want to ask questions and you don't know who to ask, you don't know where to go. And if I don't proclaim to have all the answers. I never have, and I never will, because although I'm very educated, and I'm definitely educated on the subject of sickle cell, I don't know everything. So if I don't know something, I'm not afraid or ashamed to say, you know what, I don't know, but I do know a lot of people who know a lot of things.
And we're not doctors, but we definitely can put our hands on some doctors to get you some answers, or at least give you the questions to go back and ask your doctors.
Yes.
And I do a lot of that. I refer people, like, I don't try to give them advice. I'm not a counselor, but I can definitely give them the questions to go back and ask their physician, and be a stand for their, learn how to advocate for themselves, and demand those tests. Because people say, well, they're not going to test me again. I'm like, no, you need to go back and share with them the information that you got and the questions you have, and get answers. And if you don't get the answers, then find you another physician that will help you, because it's, at the end of the day, it's your medical. You're paying, and you get to pick your doctors.
They work for you.
Exactly.
That's what people don't understand. That whole, oh, well, I can't, because no, they work for you. They're there to help you, not the other way around. If they feel like they have all the power, they don't.
Yeah.
You do. So at any moment, if any medical professional has made that, decision to try to put that on you to say, oh, I'm the one in the power. You have to. No. Yeah. You have the power. You have the right to either seek another doctor who will, work with you, or fire them. And, I'm sorry. I'm a firm believer
just tell them you'll be gone next enrollment. You'll be enrolled in some other position somewhere else.
I don't play that. I don't got time for all that. I will call my insurance like, you know what? It's not working out. They're like, oh, is there a reason? Oh, yes. I have lots of reasons. Do you have the time? And they're like, okay. Because I am, oh my gosh, I'm so, for a very long time, I will say this. I will sit, and especially if there's a new doctor, I've had doctors come into the room and feel like they were just going to tell me how to manage my sickle cell, how to manage my life, they thought they were going to talk to me any type of way because, oh, you have sickle cell and you're less than, so I'm going to talk to you the way that I want to talk to you. And then they met me, and they're like, oh, she's crazy. Oh, no, I'm not crazy. You're crazy. You think you got to come to me about my life and tell me what I'm going to do with my life. Because at the end of the day, if something happens to me because your shortcomings, guess what? You're still going to be able to wake up in the morning, whether you regret it or not. Yeah. I won't. I'm gone. So then what do I have? Yeah. So that's how you have to look at things. You have to look at it like, what Drake said it best, you only live once.
YOLO.
YOLO, okay? Every time you see a doctor that come in acting crazy, think about YOLO. We're like, oh.
Yeah, but you do have rights as a patient.
You definitely
you got to utilize them.
Definitely should exercise those rights. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel like, oh, I'm being difficult. Don't feel like, oh, they think I'm crazy. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to be a little crazy sometimes.
Oh, you ain't lying. So let me ask you before we get out of here. I got, this is my question that I've been posing to the community lately, is the conversation about quality of life versus a cure.
Okay.
So where do you, and how, for me, how that question is about is quality of life is, not being defined by your illness, being able to manage it, but also living your life and doing what you do, doing the work that you want to do and having the job you want, versus, having a cure, which there is no universal cure. There are some cure-like conversations out there, but there is no universal cure. So for me, quality of life versus cure also means to me like quality of life is you're living in the present, you're living in the moment. There's no stress today. You've got everything you need today. You've got your family, your health, whatever. And if you live into the cure, living that far in the future can create some anxieties about where your life is headed, or are they going to find a cure before I die, and all these things. And so I bring that question up because the mental aspect of our community, I think, is just as important as managing your illness.
Definitely.
So my question that I bring to the community, because I've experienced depression and being in that space, and living the future of uncertainty, is why my anxiety was so far out, and living to the future of, I know what's going to happen to me or my life was over. And then seeing that same kind of related conversation in our community about the cure. So yes, we advocate, we pray, we do what we, about the cure, but do you have to live into that? Or do you live in the moment of just managing life today? So that's my question to the community, is quality of life versus cure, and do you really see how that's impacting your mentality or your mental health as far as how you're living so far in the future?
I know I can answer that question for myself. Me personally, I would like quality of life, period. I can't focus. I do. Don't get me wrong. I'm the type of person, I think 20 steps ahead. So I'm in the future, but I'm also very much so in the now. I appreciate the right this second. And right this second, I'm not in pain. Right this second, I'm feeling amazing mentally. Right this second, I'm happy. My daughter's happy. Right this second, I'm at peace.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can't say that myself personally, I wouldn't, that's not an option for me. I don't think about, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait for a cure. No. It is not a thought that plays in my head. With me personally, what I think about is, how can I live my best life? How can I eat better?
Live my best life. Go back and bump you.
How can I get better sleep at night? How can I, get a little bit more active? How can I stop this pain in my knees? How can I do things in a way to where I'm going to be here for the long run for my child? Yeah. That is what I think about. I really don't think, oh my gosh, how can I get, this cure? How can I, to me, just, because I have a daughter, I can't think about, the cure right now, because I'm it for her. I take care of her. I'm a single mother, and I do a very good job of doing that. And I don't want to go anywhere, and I don't want to jeopardize that. So that's the first thing out of my mouth every time I go to the hospital. I'm making it back to my daughter. Yeah. So either you can help me, and we can do this together, or
I'll go back home. I'll just go back home. This is me out of here.
Yeah, it's just like, it's either or. Either you help me or you don't.
And I really, really pose that question that way for people to be able to look at their life and really figure out what's that anxiety coming from. Like, you can really look in your own life and discover where that anxiety is coming from, and then start to manage it.
Well, I get it. I really do, because you get so tired of being in pain. You get so tired and frustrated with not having the quality of life. You get so tired
that you think you should have.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You get so tired of wanting to work jobs and travel and do all these things that you're told that you can't do. You get so tired of being put in this bubble of sickle cell, and you get so tired of that, and you get fed up, and you just want to see a way out. You just want to change. You want to be able to live your life the way you want to live it, and I understand that. You know what I mean? But you really do, like you said, you have to kind of soul search and see how you can fix you. Because today, because even if you do go and get the cure,
is your body ready for it? And that's part two, is like,
your mental gotta be, you gotta be like, okay, solid as a rock. You go in something like that, because you gotta pretty much kill yourself to come out on the other side of that, to be cured. Like,
literally kill off your immune system.
Yeah, you do. You have to die to come back. And so you have to be here. You have to be all here. If you're not, then it takes you on this whole roller coaster, and it's I'm tired of all, you thought you had to take pills when you had sickle cell, you got, so.
And another part of why I know that, this is my advocacy part of my work, is because, again, society has us twisted as far as what our life should look like. I mean, so if you understand life, so we were born into this conversation about sickle cell. Mm-hmm. We didn't get no say so how they talked about it before you was born, no say so. So when you're born into this conversation, now you either become a statistic behind that conversation, or you become a rebel and a fighter, and you go against what they talk about. So it's like, how do you create your own life? And again, if you go back to the principles of the Bible and purpose and passions and gifts, I tell people, when I meet people online, it's like, you everything you need is already in you.
Yes.
You don't have to have a job. You don't have to work for some corporation.
Nope.
Like, you don't have to, because your story, if you believe who you are and you believe that your sickle cell is here for a purpose, then you have to find out what your voice is, and then you take those like we're doing.
Yes.
You find what your voice is in this conversation, and you build that. And guess what? Somebody will pay you, or somebody will fund you, or somebody will donate to you, or you know what? Favor is worth more than money. So what if somebody just paid for you to come and speak and do things like, and it's for free to you, but it's your message. And so me understanding that, thinking that the military was my career and that was my life and I was on top of the world and I had stability, and then to get medical retired because of my sickle cell trait, I realized that just recently that my trait was my gift. That it was my gift to the community, to myself, to the community, and that connects me to people. And so, do I make a living as a trait carrier, as advocate? No, I have a foundation and I got donations and things like that. I don't take a payment because I'm already blessed in that financial area. But the money goes to me going to the HBC tour with Bold Lips for Sickle Cell. It covers me going to speak with military bases or high schools or colleges across the country. So it's not about getting paid all the time. It's about your message, and it's about even your hobby.
Yes.
Even you gotta look again. Radio was
Speak on it.
Radio was a hobby. I was not into radio. Radio was a hobby. It was my own therapy, and it took me where I'm at to have a radio show, to be able to have conversations and write your own way. So don't think that you have to have some job and you got to work a 9 to 5. I tell people, find 3 things in your life that you want to speak about. And if it's sickle cell, find a piece that you want people to be aware about. Find your education piece and find your preventive piece. And from your life experience, imagine you just go out into your community and talk about that. That is what we need. People to go out where you are and go share your story. Go and share in your community.
Use your voice.
Use your voice. And guess what? Somebody's going to come along and say, you know what, how much it costs? Oh, here's $2,000 donation. And you create the space for them to give to you.
Yes.
Is that working for a company? No.
No.
It becomes a family business. It becomes your own work. It becomes whatever a sports brand, clothing line, whatever. All those hobbies are ways for you to make money, because at the end of the day, success is not about how much money you got. No. It's about your continued accomplishments. Absolutely. But you have to know what your end game is. If it's money, if it's fame, people want different things in life. Everybody don't want money. Everybody's not chasing money. You have to know what you want, how much money it's going to take for you to live, not survive, to live, and then create that. And whether it's $2,000 a month or whatever, I just don't think that. I think our community, we get stuck in that normal. Like, there is no such thing as a normal life. Like, you got to find your own way and everything that you need for your advocacy work. You've already experienced it. You've already lived it. You got the stories behind it, and you got the proof.
Go sit down.
And that's what I say. Focus on those conversations, not about trying to work for somebody, because again, purpose, passions, gifts, everything is inside of you, and then you team up with other people who are doing so. Now my conversation doesn't neglect hers or interfere with her conversation, so we can work together.
Exactly.
Because we're not talking about the same thing. My story, her story is different, but they connect, and that's where your gifts can connect and your passions connect with other people. Like a band, you got a guitar player, bass player, drummer, singer. Everybody plays their role.
You can have the greatest band in the world if you just, opened up your mind and your heart to working towards making yourself better in your craft. Like, I started writing when I was 7 after my mom passed away. And, by the time I was 10 years old, I knew that I wanted to make a living writing. I knew that was what I wanted to do. Yeah. So from the time that I was 10 to right now, I have written so much. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And the fact that I don't just write, I don't limit myself to, oh my gosh, no, I can only write poetry because that's where I started.
Right, no.
That's where I started,
don't
so
fall
I have
in that
to
trap
stay
either.
there.
Yeah, don't fall in
No.
that. I did that to myself too. Don't set up your own traps.
No, I write poetry, I write books, short stories, scripts. What else? I write a lot of things. So
It's, again, like she said, it could be a hobby. It could be your necklace that you make. It could be a bracelet you make. It could be a T-shirt you make. You got to figure out what that is and connect that to your life experiences.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of that stuff will start to disappear because there is no normal.
Exactly.
There is no such thing as normal. And so, but that's what I'm questioning now with the community is the quality of life versus cure, because for me that's a way to possibly interrupt that anxiety, that depression, because if you're too far in the past, then that's depression. If you're worried about what happened and then you're worried about what if it's going to happen again, I mean, so you got anxiety and depression, and they're from different parts of where we worry from. And learning that from myself and then going to classes and being able to discover how to get that peace. Like I chase peace of mind now, and this advocacy work and this landmark education and my spirituality relationship I'm building. I'm actually, at the end of the day, I'm chasing peace.
Yes,
absolutely. And to discover that, when I discovered that before, it's like priceless.
Yes.
And I share that. And so you might catch me interrupting your conversation one day, and I might, chime in your group and like ask questions, because sometimes you have to break that cycle of people's mindset.
Yes.
You have to challenge their thought process sometimes. So
yes, absolutely. And I
it.
feel like, peace, it should be your number one priority, because honestly, you have no idea how at peace I am in my life right now. And I can say it's probably one of the best feelings ever. And, to be at peace. And I'm not saying things are perfect.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because there can always be room for growth and for more. But the fact that I'm at peace with where I am right now, that says a whole lot, because I've been on this earth for 28 years. And it took me 28 years to discover what peace truly is, and to live in that and to thrive in that. Because right now, I have so much things, so many opportunities, so much life to live, so much, traveling, so much things that I can do. And I know I'm at peace with myself, and I'm at peace with knowing I'm not afraid. I don't set limits on myself. I don't entertain people's foolery. If you got the foolery, don't bring it towards me, because it's gonna be dismissed all the way away from me. So that is the best thing and the best place I feel that I can be in my life. And if I could say anything to anybody, especially anyone living with sickle cell, that is the most important thing. Sometimes we feel that we have to put up with, what chaos the world has for you. People that's in your life because they help you with, with your illness or with your kids or with whatever. They have this thought in their head, well, you got to put up with my stuff because I'm helping you, so you got to. No, you don't. I'm here to tell you, no, you don't. You could be by yourself with a puppy and a goldfish, and you'll be doing just fine. Trust me. It's just me and my daughter in Texas, and we do just fine. We're fine. We're happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm still at peace, and I make sure I'm at peace with every situation. I don't just leave things, off on this messed up, oh, I'm cool. No, just, make peace with people, but at the same time, you don't have to compromise your peace for others.
And don't compare yourself to somebody else's.
Oh,
either.
no.
All that stuff.
Do not compare your life or where you're at in life. Because let me tell you, I'm about to be 29. According to my calculations, okay, I don't really tell people what I'm supposed to have right now or soon, but it's not a house. It's bigger than a house, okay? And I will have that one day. A lot of people call me the Oprah of sickle cell, whatever. I'm Shabreon Howard. I've always said, I want Oprah to tell me one day, hey, let me hold something, because you got it. You feel me? Like, you got it, Shay. Let me get a little something of that, So just knowing all my life I've thought that, and that's where I'm headed in my head. And it's not,
You drop one of them films, it's going to be a wrap.
You feel me? I'm telling you, it's
all
about to go.
All that stuff you holding on to.
Yes, I'm saying, I know that I was blessed with these gifts for a reason, and I know for a fact it took me till I was 25 years old, actually 26, to understand why I was blessed with so many gifts and what I was to do with them. It wasn't to go and be the traditional, you know, filmmaker in the industry and you know,
which is not bad.
Which, you know, that's okay.
If you have a job and you're working, what they say on the Bible principles is, yeah, you go to work there, but when you off of work, you're supposed to be creating your own stuff after you get off of work. You're supposed to go home and create your own way.
Yes.
And then one day your own way is going to outweigh your job.
Yes.
And then that's where you make the transition into your own.
Exactly.
Your own business or your whatever that is for yourself.
Exactly. And it's just like sometimes you got to get out of your own way. That's the truth of the situation. I have so many opportunities to stand in my way for so much things because it's like, oh my gosh, you have too much on your plate. You're doing too much. And it's like, if I'm okay and I'm not I'm not overwhelmed and I don't feel like, oh my God, it's so much work.
I get that. You at the college, you at the military base, you over here, you always traveling. Hey, there's people's lives at stake.
Yes.
At the end of the day, for me, there's people's lives at stake. So
this is important.
I'm about to sit at home.
Right.
What else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Watch TV or something? I could be somewhere speaking. I'm out.
I just got to California today, okay? Boom. Just like earlier. You know what I did? I came here, I ate, I took a nap, and
now we're right here.
I'm here. Because at the end of the day, I know my limits. And I know I'm not afraid if I wasn't feeling well, if I felt like it was just too much, he knows. I have no problem speaking up.
I'd have been cool. I drove an hour and something to get here, so I'd have been like, redirect.
He would have been like, yo, okay, cool, all right, later.
Hey, reschedule.
And it would have been okay. and you know, I know he knows if I was saying, okay, we got to reschedule this for a reason. He knows if I'm okay, I'm okay. Just like I'm sitting here right now. But if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, again, just find your own way.
Yes.
Just find your own way.
Everybody has their own path.
And I hear, and you can hear when people say, oh, this disease doesn't define me, but then your language is a trap. So how you talk and how you say that it doesn't define you, some of us who are listening, we could tell that it's defining you by how you talk about it.
I'm a sickler. So, I'm not defined by sickle cell. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. like sickle cell is outside
anything,
of you. Yeah,
right.
like it's outside of you.
It's what you do. It's not who you are. You're not a sickler. You sickle, but you're not a sickler.
And like you said, like the days that you are feeling great, those are the days you need to take advantage.
Yes.
You need to be out and about, going somewhere, celebrating, having some fun. And the days that you are down in your crisis are the days you just gotta manage them.
Yes.
And I think to me, managing it is the best way.
Yes.
But when you up and you freed and painless and whatever, man,
don't make excuses for
you see me on my bike. There are days I don't feel like I can't get out of bed, and there are days you see me on my spider, and I'm like, hey, I'm outside today.
Exactly.
Because who knows how I feel, tomorrow. So
exactly, you gotta live your life to the fullest, and I know that, that's why our whole birthday is so important because, my daughter's a miracle. So her birthday, I'm like, whatever I can do, we will, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
As long as I give her an amazing memory, you know what I mean? Some of my best memories were of me being with my mom for my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
So, I want to give her that. I want to pass that on to her. And I want to be able to give her that memory and vice versa, She's like, oh, Mom, I want to do this for your birthday. And I want to do that. And it's like, girl, you're 5. Sit down. What are you talking about?
How you know about all that stuff?
But, just the fact that she has that oh my gosh, my mom she just went all out, and I just really love her, you know, and I want to make her feel as special as she made me feel. And that's how I know that I did my job, you know. And it's just don't sit there and don't make excuses for yourself. Don't set in those limitations for yourself. I know there is times when I have been feeling horrible. Now, I mean so bad that I didn't see me not feeling horrible. I have poetry on my social media right now. Hopeless, part 1 and 2. Go look that up, okay? It's under my Work Hush Wednesday albums. And Hopeless part 1 and 2 was when I was in the most pain. I didn't understand why I was in so much pain. I was going through so much. And I didn't see the fact that I'm going to get better eventually. So I wanted to write that in that moment so that when I was feeling like that, so when I'm feeling better, I could go back and say, you know what? This is why I wrote that. How can I help you?
Can you go turn back on the TV? Back to...
Okay, hold on, okay? Drink your water. Go drink your water. You playing too much. No, it's some more.
So yeah, definitely. I appreciate you for having this and being able to share our information. So if you want to reach me, Twitter is WDC. I am WDC. Instagram is WDC Radio. I got so many radio shows now that I've been out editing, 1-minute clips of them and sharing the parts that I felt that was important what the person talked about. So I've been resharing a lot of videos of my previous interviews from the last 5 years. So all those conversations are relevant. I mean, they're so common about the hospital experience, about the crisis. I mean, it's common because it's all sickle cell related. So at the end of the day, the results and the impact are the same across the board. It's just how we experience it and then what we do with those experiences. So
absolutely. So thank you all. And Tiana, I see your comment.
What's up? All these years.
I'm so sorry. I can't see the whole comment until I get off of here, so I'm gonna respond to you.
Oh, she says that. Because she did the bone marrow and it wasn't successful. So she's like, now she's certain her quality of life is excellent.
And that's all that matters, girl. Thank you for watching. And I appreciate it. He probably went back outside. You crazy? He probably tired.
My website is wdconset.org, and a lot of stuff coming for 2019. Some serious announcements, some life-changing announcements are coming up. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And like I said, I post everything on my social media platforms. So just follow me here, Farron DOzier.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. Everybody know me, Shabreon Howard on YouTube. Shabreon Slays. No, Shabreon Slays. Yes, because I slay,
she
baby.
Slays.
Slay, okay? That's my Instagram. My Twitter is I am Sam with the N. So it's I am Sam with the N at the end. And what else? That's pretty much it. If you have sickle cell, I do have a group called Sickle Cell Squad.
Oh yeah, we forgot about my groups.
So you're more than welcome to add the groups. Also, we have, if you live in or around the LA area, we have an event coming up.
Boom. Next week.
Jazz Brunch next Sunday. Is it next Sunday? Yes, next Sunday. And it's going to be so much fun. We're going to have open mic. We're going to have painting.
Battle of the Jeans, baby.
Yes, it's going to be so much fun. So please don't miss out, because I'm telling you, if you do not make it here and you live in or around LA, you're going to be missing out. Because anybody know me, know I bring the fun and the funny. So it's going down, all the way down.
Can we talk to you last time?
And I forgot my group that I have. Are You Having Sickle Sex? I mean, that's where we at with it. Are You Having Sickle Sex? And WDC Radio on Facebook for my radio show. Sports Collective TV. I do that show on Mondays right now at 5, and I talk about sickle cell trade in sports and mental health in that arena. So I mean, it's good work.
Yes, absolutely.
Keeps me sane. Keeps me You know, wanting to get up in the mornings and outside of myself.
Yes.
For real, outside of
Absolutely.
myself.
I also have the campaign I Chose Life, and that is also on Facebook. The preview videos, I will be releasing the actual videos really soon. So I can't wait for you all to see that. And also I do have my documentary series fan page on Facebook. Now that one is A Warrior's Life documentary series. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this conversation about sickle cell trait. Thank you all who watched, who joined, who spoke, who asked questions. Thanks for your feedback. If you have anything else you want to say, if you have any live conversations you want me to have, don't hesitate to inbox me. Don't hesitate to comment what you wanna, what you would like to be talked about. I know I have someone who wants me to talk about sex and sickle cell, and I'm looking. I need to find people because. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, we'll be having that conversation at some point soon, and it's a good conversation. It's just very complicated and intricate, and okay.
Adult conversation. Peace.
And you all have a lovely, lovely night. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you. Stay tuned, and like I say, don't blink because I got so much coming up. Bye.
Later.